Iran, because of the great leadership of the Shah, is an island of stability in one of the more troubled areas of the world.
On the 1st of February 1979, the Middle East was shaken by this man. He overthrew decades of Western domination and unleashed a fundamentalist zeal across the Muslim world. Since the declaration of the Islamic Republic in 1979, the United States has been at odds with Iran. America had armed Saddam against Iran, imposed harsh economic embargoes, and even shot down an Iranian civilian airliner.
President Reagan today called the downing of an Iranian airliner by American missiles yesterday a tragic but understandable act.
In more recent times, tensions with Iran have escalated.
From there, it's only a few months, possibly a few weeks, before they get enough enriched uranium for the first bomb.
This is a significant and dangerous provocation. There have been a spate of attacks blamed on Iran in recent weeks, but this is a direct attack on a U.S. military asset. This drone is one of America's most sophisticated unarmed surveillance aircraft.
We are by far the strongest military in the world. Going into Iran would be a very easy decision, as I said before, be very easy, the easiest thing.
A war with Iran seems imminent. Because of perpetual hostility from the U.S., Israel, and the Arab states, Iran has since 1979 used the Quds Force to establish a geopolitical network of proxies that would shield it from hostile forces and cement its influence across the Middle East. In 1982, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard trained and equipped Hezbollah, a Lebanese Shia paramilitary organization, and one of Tehran's most infamous exports. Hezbollah adopts the notion of the rule of the jurist, a contemporary Shia political doctrine which gives supreme religious authority to the Grand Ayatollah of Iran, effectively rendering Hezbollah a direct proxy of Iran. Politically, both Iran and Hezbollah view Israel as a sworn enemy.
Israel is a transgressor and is our enemy.
Since 1982, Hezbollah's main goal has been to expel the Israeli occupation in Lebanon. After a grueling 18-year war, the Israelis withdrew from South Lebanon in 2000. This victory catalyzed the popularity of Hezbollah across the Muslim world. Hezbollah fighters would later be sent to war zones across the Middle East to further Iranian strategic interests. In 2011, Hezbollah fighters were sent to Syria to reinforce the crumbling regime of Bashar al-Assad. In 2014, Hezbollah advisors were sent to Iraq to fight ISIS. In 2015, they were also sent to Yemen to train Houthi forces against the Saudi-led coalition. Hezbollah is a pivotal military instrument for Iranian geopolitical interests across the Middle East.
What if Israel or the U.S. attacked Iran, attacked its nuclear facilities? Would you then use your weapons against Israel?
لا أعلم ما الذي يمكن أن يحصل، لكن ما أعرفه أن أي عدوان بهذا المستوى يمكن أن يشعل المنطقة بأسرها.
Saddam regarded the new Islamic Republic as a threat to regional stability. On the 22nd of September 1980, the Iraqi army, with the support of the West, launched a surprise invasion into Iran. The Iranians fought back with tenacity. The brutal war would end in 1988 with a stalemate. Iran would never forget this vicious war. During the American-led invasion of Iraq in 2003, the Iranians waited eagerly to capitalize on the fall of Saddam. They cultivated numerous pro-Iranian leaders during the 1990s, and now was the time to fill the power vacuum. Nouri Al Maliki, a pro-Iranian politician, became the first prime minister of the post-Saddam Iraq. The Americans had launched a costly invasion, but it was the Iranians who gained the most. They transformed a hostile neighbor into an allied state. In June of 2014, ISIS launched a massive campaign in northern Iraq, which took the world by surprise. As the threat of ISIS loomed closer to Baghdad, Iran felt its security was threatened. In 2014, under the leadership of the Quds Force, Iran had trained and equipped most of the 100,000 fighters of the Popular Mobilization Forces, the main counterweight to ISIS in Iraq. Out of the 67 groups which formed the PMF, 47 groups shared close links with the IRGC. These Shia militia men would eventually defeat ISIS in Iraq. The power and influence of Iran has sparked protests within Iraq.
Protesters are demanding political and economic changes. Many have also fueled anger toward Iran. It's the latest round of bloodshed and violence to erupt in the country.
Despite this, Iranian influence within Iraq in the form of the PMF will likely remain strong. Iran and Syria are not ideologically aligned, as Iran adheres to political Shiaism, while Syria adopts the secular Ba'athist ideology. The relationship between Syria and Iran is important for two reasons. First, both have mutual enemies, Sunni resistance fighters, America and Israel. Secondly, Syria is strategically vital as it connects Iran with Lebanon via Iraq and Syria, thus cementing Iranian geopolitical influence in the Middle East. Since the dawn of the Syrian Revolution in 2011, Iran has persistently supported the regime of Bashar al-Assad. It is estimated that Iran has spent tens of billions of dollars in Syria. Iran has provided weapons to the Syrian military, and similar to Iraq, Iran has used its Quds Force to train 50,000 militiamen who fight under the banner of the National Defence Force, a pro-Assad faction. The Wall Street Journal estimates that Iran has sent over 7,000 of its own IRGC fighters to Syria in 2015. That number has likely increased in recent times. As victory looms closer for the Assad regime, Iran anticipates increasing military influence in Syria due to its substantial investment in the civil war and its geopolitical rivalry against Israel.
Israel and Iran are staring each other down tonight across the expanse of Syria. Long simmering hostility flared to life last night as the Israelis blasted Iranian fighters in Syria with their largest airstrike since the 1973 war.
The Houthi movement emerged in Sadda in the 1990s as a reaction to the policies of President Saleh. In 2014, the Houthis capitalized off the political instability in Yemen and took control of Sana'a. Soon, they were heading towards Aden, where the new president was located. In response to the rapid Houthi territorial gains, Saudi Arabia had assembled a coalition of 8 Arab states to eliminate the Houthi rebellion and restore Hadi's government. Iran does not exercise the same level of control over the Houthis as it does over Hezbollah or the PMF. They have ideological differences, as the Houthis are from the minority Zaydi Shia sect, while Iran adheres to the more mainstream Twelver sect of Shiaism. Despite the ideological differences, both the Houthis and Iran have a mutual enemy: Saudi Arabia. Since the Houthi uprising in 2014, Iran has provided numerous weapons to the Houthi rebels, including small arms, manpads, drones, and even ballistic missiles. The more weapons that Iran provides to the Houthis, the more leverage it has over the group. In 2019, a series of attacks were launched at Saudi oil tankers. These attacks had global economic ramifications.
A twin attack at night with drones on 2 major Saudi oil facilities, one of them the largest in the world. This was an extraordinary operation, the scale, the method, and the impact.
Many experts believe that Iran was dictating the recent attacks, as the attacks do not necessarily align with the Houthis' interests, but the culprit remains unknown. In 1987, Iran helped establish Hamas, a Palestinian Sunni militant Islamist group. Both Iran and Hamas share the goal of confronting Zionism.
The Palestinians are oppressed by the Israelis, and Israelis is the oppressor, so we are sympathetic with the Palestinians.
Iran has supported the group by providing small arms and rockets. However, in 2012, Hamas endorsed the majority Sunni Syrian opposition. This caused a rift in relations, as Iran was supporting Assad, a Shia ally. Despite this, there has been a gradual rapprochement between the two sides. In 2014, Egypt had closed the supply tunnels from Sinai to the Gaza Strip, and the Gulf monarchies have expressed their distaste towards the Muslim Brotherhood, an affiliate of Hamas. The financial pressure had forced Hamas to revitalize its alliance with Iran, therefore reviving Iranian geopolitical influence in Palestine.
به گرد جمهوری اسلامی نرسید در حمایت از فلسطین. این همه دنیا تصدیق کرده.
The Iranians have significantly increased their regional power since 1979. They have proxies in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and Palestine. A possible U.S.-led war against Iran will cause the entire Middle East to erupt in flames.